And joining me now on the legal ramifications of a conspiracy to take down President Trump is Fox News legal analyst Gregg Jarrett. He is the author of the bestseller, Witch Hunt, the story of the greatest mass delusion in American political history. Also joining us is journalist Lee Smith, author of The Plot Against the President, the true story of how Congressman Devin Nunes uncovered the biggest political scandal in U.S. history. Both books, I should point out, were published more than 6 years ago. Back in 2019, these two were telling us the truth. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and thank you for your work. Greg, kicking things off with you, what is your reaction to what you just heard from John Ratcliffe? Do you believe the DOJ will act, and will the statute of limitations apply to conspiracy or not?
I would say yes to all three. This does look like a broad criminal conspiracy, Maria, by unscrupulous officials, dishonest people. And I would look at conspiracy to defraud the government, deprivation of rights under color of law, but importantly, obstruction of justice and the cover-up. The elaborate cover-up has been going on for years, as Stephen Miller pointed out, which extends the statute of limitations in any conspiracy case against malign actors. That's because the clock begins ticking when deliberately concealed evidence is discovered, which is actually quite recently. So, for example, you were talking about the burn bags that were discovered, incriminating documents hidden at the FBI, as well as other records, hard drives squirreled away under lock and key by Comey, recently found. So attempting to conceal or destroy evidence relevant to investigations, that's obstruction, and the last overt act in a conspiracy starts the clock anew. So that's the value of bringing a conspiracy case that includes obstruction.
When do you expect the DOJ to act then, Greg?
I think they still need to accumulate all of the relevant evidence, much of which is probably pretty incriminating. But I wouldn't be worrying about the clock right now. I'd be concerned about gathering all of the credible, reliable evidence to present to a grand jury.
Lee Smith, I remember when you were writing this book and you were working with Devin Nunes to do so, and Devin Nunes is the hero in all of this. We know that. He was on my show on this program multiple times throughout 2016, 17, 18, telling the truth. I want to thank you and Greg for your truth-telling. There were a few of us, myself, you, Molly Hemingway. What about the media's role? You haven't heard a peep of this on any of the mainstream media, this huge story.
Well, I mean, it's hardly surprising, Maria, because the media was the crucial platform. None of this happened without the media. The issue was not that the Washington Post or the New York Times, that they blew the story or they were lazy. They were an important part of the story. Remember, especially the Times and especially the Post, this was a platform for leaks of classified information. They were part of a serial crime spree run by the Department of Justice and bad actors at the FBI, past and present at the time, 6 years ago. So it's not surprising that we see an article like the one that we saw this week by Charlie Savage and by Adam Goldman, which is running just insane nonsense, misreporting what this Durham Annex is actually about. I just want to make clear what this Durham Annex is about. It's about how the FBI hid information that came in from a trusted foreign partner. Durham never said anything like it was forged information by the Russians or anything like that. No, the fact is that the FBI, when this information came in, they hid it. And in fact, it's also a crucial piece of information that the CIA never believed that this intelligence was Russian disinformation. They believed it. So they knew what they had. They knew what it was pointing to. And instead of stopping it, instead of stopping this insane Clinton program to undermine Trump, what did they do? The FBI plotted to get a surveillance warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. And that's what led to the biggest political scandal in U.S. history. And Maria, you're absolutely right. You were on it. I remember talking to you for that book. I remember watching you and being very grateful, also to Gregg's reporting too. And I'm happy, as you were speaking about before with Stephen Miller, that we'll have some clarification, I think, and accountability for the American people and for the people who got hurt. People in the Trump circle, like General Flynn, you said, like Roger Stone, like Paul Manafort, like Devin Nunes, like the Trump family. A lot of people were badly hurt by this, but as a whole, it really targeted our constitutional republic.
Well, Gregg, it ripped the country apart, didn't it? And the media was critical in terms of doing that.
Well, they're still at it. And, you were all over the hoax from the very beginning, so kudos to you, Maria. But, right now, the New York Times would have us believe that these Clinton emails are fabricated Russian disinformation, their favored trope. But that's not what the Durham Annex says. As Lee points out, the story omits the critical passage that they may be entirely genuine and minimizes the conclusion that they were probably a composite of very real, authentic emails. And the newspaper also ignores how James Comey testified that he believed the materials were genuine and how top intel officials were equally convinced that Hillary invented the hoax to smear her opponent. This Times story also conspicuously leaves out how Clinton's campaign funded the dossier that was phony and discredited, and that corroborates the legitimacy of these emails. But don't forget, the Times won a Pulitzer Prize for getting the collusion story fundamentally wrong, so they're deeply invested in maintaining the fiction that, everything's Russian disinformation, just like Hunter's laptop. There was never a Trump-Russia collusion conspiracy, but there was a conspiracy to frame Trump for collusion, and the media was in on it.
But, you've got to move this forward now, right? And I don't understand why we are not seeing more action right now. Maybe I'm too close to it because I followed this and knew this was alive from day one, as you did. But shouldn't the DOJ have enough information now? Don't they have enough facts now to move forward and prosecute right now?
Inventing a lie is easy, and selling the lie to the public is even easier. But, uncovering the truth, that's hard.
Go ahead, Lee, real quick.
I think there's plenty of evidence in this newly released document, as well as the Durham report in general, to say how this got buried, to go around and investigate who buried it. It's very clear what happened. Part of the FBI knew what was going down, another part didn't. So someone clearly buried this information. That's trouble right there.
All right, we will leave it there. Gentlemen, great to have you this morning. Thanks very much. Fox News legal analyst Gregg Jarrett, journalist and author Lee Smith. Thank you.
Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.